Elvis did not discuss the deals with anybody outside the Colonel. But in 1973, Elvis was going through a divorce and he needed money. I think the Colonel was going through some heavy gambling debts. And this is the one deal that Elvis did talk to me about and his understanding of it. Not because of his lack of intelligence, but because Elvis never sat down with an attorney on these deals. It was just the Colonel gave him the ballpark figures. And we were out in the meditation gardens, and Elvis said, "You won't believe this deal the Colonel got for me. I don't have to do a damn thing." And I got over $5 million.
The 73 deal, the infamous 73 deal, where Elvis sold the artist royalties for the records back to RCA for $5.4 million. You know, and Colonel took half of it. Here's another dime for you, Mr. Songman.
Elvis was elated about this deal. And again, it's not for lack of intelligence, it's lack of nobody ever explaining to Elvis what that meant long-term, what that meant to his catalog. All he knew is that he was going through a divorce. He needed a big payment.
I guess the argument was made that nobody listens to the old records anymore and this type of thing, which, if you really look back, was kind of ludicrous because Elvis's touring was better than ever. American Graffiti had been a huge box office hit, and Happy Days was already on television. So I just don't buy that it was a good business deal. Colonel Parker personally told me later that he did it because of the divorce, which I don't believe either, because if Elvis Presley needed $1.75 million for a divorce settlement, he could have gotten that in less than a month by going out on the road.
And I don't want that to sound like, what a dummy, because given the information, Elvis Presley would make the right decisions most of the time.
Hello, misfortune, how's my old friend, Mr. Misery?
The structure of these deals, yes, they were slanted away from Elvis and towards Colonel. But what I know about Elvis was, as long as Elvis had what Elvis wanted, if he had enough to do what he wanted to do, he was kind of okay.
It was brought to our attention when Elvis was spending a lot that there were monetary problems. There was one time the staff was cut. It got so bad that we were told not to drink the Mountain Valley water because it cost so much a case. Now, of course, Colonel's the only person that would have said that, and he did.
Yes, I did.
And, you know, poor Vernon Presley tried very hard to keep Elvis' spending habits in line with what he was making.
Vernon was a businessman. He didn't want to spend no money. When Elvis would start giving cars away or anything, it would just get all over him. You know, and he'd tell my mother, he said, "I need you to come keep track of what he's getting rid of."
It was really difficult for me because, you know, I knew how Elvis felt, and I knew how he wanted to spend his money, which it was his right to do so, you know. But I could also feel for Uncle Vernon because I was sitting there thinking the same way he was, you know, like, oh, dear Lord, what are we going to do? He was buying, like, trailers for everybody in the world, and horses, and trucks, and the ranch down there, and he just would go wild, you know.
I know the Aloha concert when Elvis threw the cape out into the audience. My mother said that Vernon, she just thought he was going to pass out because of the cost of the cape. He was afraid Elvis would go broke, what it was, the way Elvis was giving away. But Elvis told him, said, "Daddy, don't worry about it, I'll make more."
There were financial crises. I mean, he actually left without enough financial planning to hold on to Graceland.
Because of the fact that he was so generous and because he'd spend money on other people even more than himself. Maybe he'd have a splurge here and there, but it was mostly just, generally speaking, lifestyle. It was gone, and I think there was maybe $1 million left, and there was some place that it had to go, you know, that was owed money to or debt.
After your dad died, I was left really with nothing to work with, and it was a shock when I found out, you know, through all the lawyers and the accountants, that we had nothing really to go back to, because it was either sell Graceland or give it up to the state.
What do you give credit for the preservation of Graceland?
Oh, Priscilla.
Priscilla, no question about it. For a girl that didn't know too much about anything, you know.
Hands down. There wouldn't be a Graceland today if it wouldn't be for Priscilla.
I'm coming home, this time I'm gonna stay. I'm coming home, and I ain't never going away.
The estate was literally down to its last $500,000. Nobody knows, but that's what it was.
It was a harsh reality, and I asked, how long do I have? And I only had actually less than a year to make the decision if it was going to state or auction it off. And I said, I'd like to, you know, give me some time. I'm thinking of opening it up and maybe, you know, opening it up as a museum. They did not want to do that. They felt that, you know, we should just get rid of it, and it would be, no one would ever, you know who Elvis was or your dad was in, you know, less than maybe 5 years, basically. That was it, and I knew better. I know your dad left us a lot of things to work with.
She did that to save Graceland.
Yeah.
And his memory.
In 1982, you opened Graceland.
She was the driving engine that did that for Graceland. And she did it for her daughter.
Thank you, Mom.
I can see you now, living like a queen, in a house that has everything.
Well, when they first opened up for tours, it was a totally different experience of what we had ever known. And all of a sudden, the public is going to be going through this place that you've considered home. And, you know, how much is it going to change?
I had no idea at the time what it meant. The first thing that was opened was the actual grave site area. So that was the first thing I kind of got used to, the idea that people were coming up there. And then it sort of gradually moved into the house, but never upstairs. That's all I cared about, you know, was his general area. That was something that I didn't want to exploit in any way.
Well, it's really amazing the amount of people who still come here to visit Graceland.
Over 600,000 a year. That's a lot of people.
It did bother us, I guess, a little bit. But then on the other hand, we knew Elvis was so proud of Graceland. And he did like to show it off. He'd invite people up for parties and things and just bring them up to show the place off. And I know Elvis would be proud of the way it was taken care of.
And to go there now, it's like comforting to see it in its original form and never touched, you know. And on the other hand, it's sort of, you know, heartbreaking to go there and look at that it's just a shell now of what was.
It's a house now. It's not the home that it was, but trying to recreate that without Elvis, it really isn't a home.
It's been 10 years since Elvis passed away. When he passed away, I was on tour. I had to stay behind, close out all the tours. But I've been for 10 years doing nothing except consulting work and working on keeping Elvis's name in the limelight with the fans because they're devoted.
It's a constant, you know, operation to keep under control his name, likeness, and image.
A little less conversation, a little more action.
Actually, when Elvis died, the right to his name, image, and likeness, legally you couldn't pass it on to your heirs. And it was during the early 80s that Elvis Presley Enterprises fought in the courts and eventually won to where those rights could be passed on to heirs, in this case to Lisa. But Lisa paid for those court battles, but at the end of the day, she helped out many, many other people. John Lennon's kids or whoever, they have the right to control their parents' image and likeness rights.
I mean, there was a lot of stuff involved there. You know, you're talking about, you know, gaining control over that. If that didn't happen, God knows, you know, what would be done with his name, and it'd be all over toilet paper rolls. I've seen everything from, you know, that to, it's gone, it's crazy.
From all of that, there ended up a settlement where Colonel Parker was removed from Lisa's life completely and forever.
It had to be done. And it's a constant battle, you know, keeping the little slimy worms from, you know, opening up their little thing or doing their thing, and we have the right to come down and stop it. Thank God.
Less conversation, a little more